1965, when I was a realtor here in North Vancouver, that was the way we sold most houses at that time. We sold, if somebody had a house built, they had the house built and they only had X bit of done. You never painted the house, for instance, because
I'm going to do it
that
myself.
later. Yeah.
Yep.
you did the thing. The people got their bare dry rock or drywall, etc., etc. Back to this is just the first years that they were changing from lathe, plaster and lathe to drywall in 1965. But people bought their houses unfinished. And did you live in Regina?
No, I lived in Winnipeg.
You lived in Winnipeg. Well, Winnipeg's even better. I should have recognized that.
Yeah.
Do you remember you could drive down Main Street or what the hell was number 8 highway? McGillivray? No, whatever. And you'd see houses that were built and they had the door and the stairway going up like that. There'd be a couple of, there'd be a bare house, just the basement, covered with tar paper,
Yeah.
and the door. People living in it, would be a chimney and so on. And the yard would be full of potatoes because you planted potatoes in your yard. You didn't do something like sod.
Yeah.
And people regularly built their house. They built their basement, and they lived in the basement for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years until they got enough money to build the rest of the house.
Yeah, to finish the rest of the house, yeah.
But bylaws don't let you do that anymore.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is really silly because
Well, yeah. I mean, it's living next to one if everybody else has got their house finished isn't the most fun thing.
Yeah.
But you know what? Those were the days when people were very
those
frugal.
were the days when we had to do it.
Yeah.
You're-
Well,
so
a house
you're-
was also a very utilitarian and practical
You're
thing. in
20
those
years
days.
younger than I am, though, I think.
Yeah.
I'm 67. You're what, 49?
49.
Yes, okay. So 18 years younger. And I will go along with the fact, I mean, I can remember Pacific Avenue in Selkirk. There were likely 7 houses on that one street that were built like that because John and Mary got married and everybody helped them build a basement and a house, and that's where they went and lived for the...
Well, also what happens too is instead of people buying a more expensive house, they buy a cheaper house. So,
That's right.
So they say, okay, well, we're not going to pay that extra $30,000 in tax, so we'll buy one that's $450,000. So all of a sudden, you're not building bigger, nicer houses, and there's less consumption again because there's less materials going into the smaller house, and on and on. It's a regressive tax, and it's going to hurt the economy. And you know, I've said to many people, right? I'm a businessman. I understand the principle of a flow-through tax with credits for business, because business effectively, whether it's directly or indirectly,
GST
passes
is
on the
now.
cost to the consumer. The business never eats the cost, so it says, oh, well, I had to pay, 7% PST on a number of materials that
You
I'm
build
using
into
for
your
this
cost,
product to
raise the
sell you.
price.
That's built into your cost. So as soon as you remove that, theoretically, the cost should come down. It never does, and it didn't with the GST. But it does free up business and make it more competitive. But and we'll grab this call in a second. But it makes it more competitive. But the problem is that you don't have to merge the tax, the provincial sales tax, with the federal to do that, and then apply it across the board. You could easily make the provincial sales tax as it exists today a flow-through tax.
A flow-through tax,
But
yeah.
then government has to then cut back somewhere else. It has to reduce the size of government, which a conservative government says is probably a good idea. It's too big anyway. The Liberals are big government. They're tax and spend Liberals.
Yep.
There's no other way to say it. They haven't reduced the size of government. They haven't asked anybody in government to sort of tighten their belts while we're going through this tough time. They're just taxing everybody to pay for it and keeping the party going. So I don't know what's worse about them than the NDP is.
Tax
people
and
say.
spend.
We have a question from Janet.
Janet, excuse me, Janet, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I can hardly hear you.
Okay. Well, I can
Okay.
hear you. We can hear you fine.
Quick question. I'm just wondering if Bill Vandersam will be making any town hall tours in the spring, say?
Right.
Any idea?
Yeah, excellent question. The plan, Janet, is to have Bill go throughout the province, particularly to the areas where we're a little bit weak on our volunteer canvassers at this point. But we do need to
Yes.
raise some money in order to do that. We've got about $3,000 in the kitty right now, which isn't a huge amount of money. It's enough to probably get a couple of flights and go to a couple of towns, but we really need to do a proper tour. So the short answer is yes, that's the intention. The long answer is we've got to find a way to finance it, and hopefully some of the business associations will come on board and help us to do that, because Bill is terrific at getting publicity when he goes into these towns and getting the message out that we're fighting this. So.
Sure, and I do think that it would be well worth his while to come to the Mid-Island area especially.
Yes, I think Mid-Island is definitely an area, and North Island where we need to get a little more interest. South Island is doing well. We've got a lot of volunteers from the Victoria area, but Mid-Island and North definitely have to be on the stopping ground. So
Yes, I find that interesting. I live right in Nanaimo Center.
right,
My MLA is Leonard Krogh with the official opposition.
right,
And since the last election, Nanaimo actually has three representation from three MLAs.
right,
Two of them are with the NDP, and the third is Ron Cantillon.
right.
And I am. It's interesting from my standpoint to see that a lot of these people surrounding me aren't really jumping at this.
Well, Nanaimo's actually fairly strong too, Janet, and I think some of that is a result of your efforts. I know you and others helped organize some of the rallies there, so that was great. But we do have a fair amount of volunteers from Nanaimo directly, but some of the other mid-island ridings or areas that are in there were a little bit sparse on. So, I agree with you. We need to get Bill there, and we need to get a little more attention. And, the local newspapers and radio stations love it when somebody like a former premier comes to town, because it's big news and it gets a lot of publicity. So Bill's fully aware of that and well prepared to come and do that. But we do need to raise a little bit more money. So anybody that's listening that wants to make a donation, fighthst.com is the website, and you're more than welcome to kick $100
make it
in.
with PayPal on our credit card?
Yeah,
What do
we got
do?
PayPal, Visa, everything on there. You can make it right online at fighthst.com.
It's up on the screen.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Much
Good night.
appreciated.
Thanks, Janet.
And if anybody else out there is watching, wants to give us a call, the number is 1-866-980-0499. And it's an intriguing type of thing, the way this goes, because this is, again, another one of these examples, because we're just sitting in my living room using very minimum equipment and producing something that's going around the world. You could be
We could
watching
have Bill.
this.
We could have
Yeah.
Bill in here from his place, and you in from your
you can
place.
feed anybody in.
Your son is in Virginia, you said?
That's right.
Your son could be on screen right now talking to you.
Yeah, and he's got a webcam too, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I got a question for you. I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit.
Sure.
Is there any possibility that the Liberals are doing this because they want to get rid of some civil servants that are in the finance department?
It's a good question, actually. my first reaction.
I said devil's advocate.
Yeah, my first reaction is to laugh, but of course the HST will now be collected by the federal
That's
bureaucracy.
right. That's right.
Which means that somewhere along the lines, you'd think you'd see a shrinkage in the provincial
Do
bureaucracy.
you think we will?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I just think it's out of control there, and I don't even think that's on the radar for the Liberals. I don't think they talk in those terms. I don't think they think in those terms anymore.
Good
I really
question
do
to ask
believe.
them.
I do believe that party, when it first started, was a true coalition of what I would call center-right British Columbians, and has evolved into a tax and spend, big government, big liberal
Yep.
type of government. And there are some people who remain on the fringes of that party who appear to have influence, people like, what's his name, Kevin Falcon, or the big guy is the Solicitor General, Rich Coleman, and others who are more to the conservative side. But really, you're not hearing a lot from them anymore. And the truth of the matter is the Premier makes most of the decisions, and he does them on behalf of the people that finance him. And so I think we're seeing a lot closer ties to the federal Liberal Party. People like Patrick Kinsella, who've been federal Liberals all their lives, have big influence in this government and take it in a certain direction. So you get window dressing on the conservative side, but really it's a tax and spend Liberal government now. And the Olympics is proof of that. And I'm just not even hearing the discussion about shrinking the size of government. And it's never popular to have to shrink the size of government and to lay people off. But when the rest of the province is literally starving and
Yes.
can't make their bills paid, and they're losing their jobs, and their cars are being repossessed and stuff, and you're standing there watching these people in government getting salary increases.
Yes.
That's
That's
out
been
of,
bothering me
yeah,
too.
It's
Yep.
outrageous. It's outrageous. One of my favorite bumper stickers is, "If you aren't outraged, you haven't been paying attention." you know?
Yes.
And if you do pay attention, it really is upsetting to see the Premier and his cabinet ministers vote themselves a raise in a time like this. Is the height of arrogance. And I don't know how they can even go to bed at night doing
The
that.
Olympics are going to be over in another month, give or take. And then we're going to have the
Well, the Paralympics are
they'll
another
be
2 weeks
included in
afterwards.
there,
Yeah.
Right.
The was it Basmi Verk?
Basie Verk trial will
That's
happen.
going to be coming up on April the 4th or something
That'll
like
help
that.
motivate some signatures for the petition, I think. Just,
I would think that your walk gets starting, I think it's April the 4th too, isn't it?
April 6th
Is April, well, no, but I think the April 4th is
is the
Verk
Basie
trial.
Verk trial. Yeah.